Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. We're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects today,
Ooh.
bashing on Bernie. So,
You're a Bernie basher.
yeah, it's a weird relationship I have with Bernie because I kind of understand, where he's coming from, his empathy towards people. He's just not a smart guy. It's like a old guy talking about AI. They have a superficial understanding, a little peripheral understanding, but then they start making decisions based on it. It's like, yeah, Grandpa, sit down.
Yeah,
Sit down.
Admittingly, like when he first sort of came to the forefront, I guess, and everybody was like, "Feel the burn," I think was the slogan, "Feeling the burn." Like, I was one of those people like, oh yeah, this guy, I like what he's saying. Of course, he cares about people, like you said. He's got these great, ideals maybe. Oh yeah, let's feel the burn. And then it was just kind of like, the more that I was like, okay, well, how are we going to do that stuff? I was like, oh, I don't think that's going to work. Or, well, how do you do that then if you're doing this?
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like...
It's just a lack of understanding of math. It's what a hippie would do. Like, they don't understand the engineering and what makes something function. But then they're going to, like, destroy the thing and be like, oh, what that happened? And then all of us get to pay the repercussions for his lack of understanding. And I listen to these people, and it's not, and I don't know how to classify it. It's not stupidity, right? It's just, it's more of like an orthodoxy where, they believe in a faith that it'll just be okay. We'll do it and it'll be just fine.
Yeah.
And that mysterious magic thing really never happens in the real world.
And sometimes the feeling I get when I hear certain people talk, especially if it is in sort of opposition to the other side, like for example, if it's Bernie or AOC or whoever, and they're talking about like Trump and Republicans, it's almost like they just won't accept anything that is not the polar opposite of what the other side wants to do, even if what they say doesn't make sense. It's almost like they are more into pushing the idea that we're right, they're wrong, we're better than them, don't listen to them, we're good, they're bad. That even if the idea doesn't make a whole lot of sense or clearly isn't going to work out, they're still just going to say and do anything just to be like obstinate.
Well, I don't think it's that sophisticated. I think what happens is these are, politicians are very modular in design. They're not great thinkers, not big philosophies. What they do is they pick a couple of their either things that they like or they dislike. And then everything happens to the landscape. They go back to one of those, either criticizing something they don't like or making that the reason why. So for instance, if they I don't like rich people, and rich people have too much money. So guess what? If there's a problem out there, it's because rich people don't have any money. The sun is hot, and this is my Bernie, by the way. It's not a real good. The sun is hot. It's definitely global warming. And so they just have their favorite 5 things to say, and because their depth is like a puddle, and so it. And I agree with them. Like the first 5 or 6 words that they say, and everything they say after it is complete horseshit. So let's kind of go back and talk about the Rogan interview because it was great. You don't really get to hear Bernie outside of campaign mode when he's on the stage or a 30-second snippet that's on, the news. And you really don't get to get a sense for if he's playing with all his cards or not.
Yeah,
right?
Or in a hearing, which is always ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. You don't get any good value out of them talking. But this was actually a pretty good interview. And I wanted to see if maybe there was something I was missing from what Bernie's philosophies really fill in. So I'm going to bring up some of the points, and then we'll discuss it and pick it apart. I'll tell you why it's dumb. Right?
And unfortunately, I did not see this interview. I really gotta catch up. I'm behind on some Rogan stuff.
Okay. All right. So the first one that I like is universal basic income, and people get really excited about it and its connection with artificial intelligence and the replacement of workers. Right. So rich people have a bunch of money. Consolidated power. So his objection is that you have corporations that have consolidated power, right? So think of it like your local utility companies. There was a building on the block, one guy owned it, provided your utilities, and then a big company comes along, sucks that company up. That company gets bought by a bigger company. And in the end, you have these great big companies that don't even freaking know who you are. You're just a commodity versus Tom down the road and someone you could talk to and can make, can greet you and cares about you and you can care about them. So I agree with them. The consolidation of power, the consolidation of activity is really bad for the end consumer, right?
Yeah.
So here's where Bernie is right, but then what do you do about it? How do you deconsolidate the power? Who's in control of the consolidation of power? You know who's in control?
Ultimately, I feel like consumers would run that. Eventually.
100%.
Yeah.
So consumers get to decide whether or not they like shopping at, Tanya's boutique down the street or Amazon.com. And when given the choice of both, they get to choose who stays in business and who doesn't. So that's first step, is whether or not people like the consolidation of power. And the answer is absolutely. Consumers will allow consolidation across the board. Mm-hmm. So you have the other part, which is, let's just say we convinced all consumers that now we don't want to consolidate power anymore. How do we then take the people who have already consolidated the power and unconsolidate that power? What do you do about that?
I don't know. Somehow you'd have to get the smaller back and show that there's more of a demand for smaller.
Well, we already convinced the consumers.
Yeah.
Now we're like, okay, we want to buy from Tanya's, but Amazon just, I can't help it. Like they're offering low prices.
Can't go to the mom
There
and
aren't
pop.
very many options.
This is more convenient.
They have all of the sales. So then we have to look up to somebody to say, do something about that.
Yeah.
Right? And you have two choices. You have tyrannical control, where you just use your legal powers and your economic powers to then punish the people who have consolidated power and rip them apart and destroy them. Or you can give subsidization to the people who are not in the control of those and give an advantage, a balancing advantage to the people who are competing against the consolidated powers, right? Mm-hmm. So if you, in your area, you have Armstrong Cable, and sorry to pick on you, Armstrong, you're just being used as an example. And your area had 5,000 people in it, and their minimum is 10,000 people, and they're like, we're not going to run cable to your area. But then the government says, here's what we're going to do. Even though that you don't have enough people to run cable, we'll give you exclusivity. We'll make sure that we won't give permitting to any other cable company, so you can take multiple years to be able to pay back your infrastructure that you're going to spend today, right? And Armstrong's like, okay, well, I can't make money off of the subscribers, but because I have exclusivity, my competition is kept out of this department, right? And now I'm willing to do it because of that special agreement that I have with it. Now you determine how long it takes to take back your infrastructure. Let's just say 5 years of exclusivity. And then another company comes in and says, hey, you know what? I'm Starlink and or I'm fiber optic, and we're going to run some cables, and we're going to hit this same group here. And Armstrong's like, wow, it was really nice to have exclusivity for a little while, but this competition is going to make us lower our prices. Because Armstrong, when they're exclusive, they don't have to compete for price.
Is this why I can only get one
exclusivity
provider?
Exclusivity.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Right. And because somebody has to put the wires and the infrastructure in to make it work, or they have to share, which they're not going to share with each other. So anyway, so now let's just say that didn't happen, and they just have exclusivity, and they're the only game in town. So you have two choices: subsidize competition and allow other people to catch up and participate, or penalize Armstrong for being the exclusive side. What do you pick what do you think is the safest and fairest way to deal with exclusivity? Even if it was granted exclusivity, even if we bought from Amazon just through a series of decisions that we made, we didn't deem them the retailer that we're all going to use. They just became the retailer we use because of the consolidation and what they could offer that smaller companies can't.
I mean, first reaction is, then couldn't we cut a break to the smaller companies to give them a fighting chance? Is that what you were saying, basically?
Would you subsidize, or would you punish, or would you do a little of both?
Maybe a little of both.
Okay. Let's craft it. What would be
Okay.
fair? Where we're fair to the company, like the Armstrong that did what they say they were going to do. They got a great deal, right, for a little
Yeah.
while, and the purpose of the great deal is either been satisfied or not satisfied.
It just feels weird to me. The idea of, like, I think you said, like, punish the bigger one that got there because of us, basically. It's not like it was anything, evil or whatever. It was like, hey, this is what the consumers clearly are supporting, and this is something that makes sense to us, and if we can make money, why not? And then it's like, oh, you got too successful, here's a consequence, which just feels weird. But I could also see, the little guy saying, hey, they're so successful that we're all going to go out of business. So it's like, all right, well, let's throw them a bone and maybe level the playing field a bit to try to get them built back up, to try to bring some of the consumers back and give them a fighting chance. But if we don't do anything to the big, how long then are they going to just try to chase each other? So could you somehow lower this to raise this to even them out? I don't know.
Well, we'll use Armstrong and we'll use Amazon because those are our two examples. So, what is the advantage of Amazon?
You don't have to go anywhere. It's right to your door.
Oh, that's
and
from a
it's
consumer.
cheap.
I'm talking the advantage
Oh.
from the national side. Why does Amazon have such a economic advantage over me?
An economic advantage.
Yeah. Do you think? Okay, so if I went to a town and I'm like, hey, city, I want to move my facility into this place, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go to the city, and the city would be like, I really want this Amazon place. Look at all these jobs that are coming in. So the city's like, we want you here so bad. We'll help with the construction costs. We'll make the permitting easy. We'll give you tax abatements going into 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And then Joe walks up to the same city and says, hey, I want to build a facility. And they're just like, okay, permitting's going to be hard. You're going to have to follow these regulations. There's
Yeah.
no tax
Who are
advantage there.
you?
You're like 5 employees deep. Like, you're not as important as
You don't matter to
Amazon is.
us.
So the advantage is Amazon's given preference because everybody wants this density of jobs. And I don't have the same access that they do. So that's number one, is giving a deal to any corporate entity that you do not or cannot offer to everyone. So let's just say you want jobs. So if you're a business and you come into town, there's tax abatements. If you give it to one, you have to give it to everyone, or you can't give it to anyone. Okay. So,
yeah.
but if so long that the mechanisms of government can pick their favorites, and you are punishing a small business because you don't want them as much as a warehouse or an Amazon distribution center.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get back to, and our overall principle as libertarians is fairness across the board, 100% fairness. If you treat Bob one way, everybody gets it. If you have a law, there's no little asterisks next to a law. It applies to everyone. DUI, everyone, right?
Yeah.
You drive, you're a judge. I don't give two shits. Oh, you broke the law? Oh yeah, you're going to prison.
Yeah.
The fairness of the law is the first thing that has to happen.
You can't just say, you benefit me and I have the power to decide, so I'm giving you something.
Exactly.
You
'Cause
don't
then-
benefit me? Sorry.
Because government is not noble. They don't know how to just nobly do something for good intentions. They're like,
Yeah.
how am I getting paid? How am I going to accumulate more power? So you got to defang them so they just don't use their functions to, prosper themselves and penalize small business. So small business is we are abused in the system as just a inconvenience to everyone.
Yeah. Oh, you're an entrepreneur? That's cute. But these people are business people that are going to make me
Exactly.
money.
So uniform application of all government mechanisms. You cannot treat anybody different would be square one. So where Bernie and I disagree is that he's a little tyranny fan, right? He's a little king. So his way is well, I'm just going to be in front of the podium, and through mob support, I'm just going to take shit from people, steal from them, give to another guy, and that's just going to work out, right?
Yeah.
So mine has mathematical support for why it would absolutely work and how it would make it a little bit better. His tyranny means that, if we can all agree that rich dude's the enemy, I could just take a shit and nobody's going to feel bad for him. And I'm sure everybody wants to be treated that way, right? As soon as the government takes aim at you, they can just take your shit. I don't want the government to be able to take anybody's shit. I really don't.
Yeah. And to me, it's just so ridiculous that people will have this outcry over this sort of big, powerful, rich entity that only became that because of you. You made them that. You continue to support that. You have the option of other smaller entities to support, and you don't. You keep supporting that one and then have outcry when they get big and that they should be penalized.
Okay, so the second part is, you remember when the bank failures happened?
Sounds familiar.
Okay, so what happens when consolidation happens is you get this clunky, inefficient version of a business model. All right, it can't change easily. It has a footprint that's really big. So when it makes mistakes, it makes huge mistakes. And with small business mistakes, right, we're pretty nimble. We can change around those mistakes and we can react a little bit faster. So if a bank, right, gets itself in trouble by issuing too much paper, and they're really lopsided on their balance sheet, and they're like, oh shit, we're bankrupt. The government's like, oh, Mr. Bank, you made some mistakes. You're in a position now. What happens to you? You go out of business, right?
Yeah.
You know what politicians do? They come to the frickin' rescue, and they say, oh, we can't have the Amazon distribution thing failing. Look at all the jobs that will be lost. And then the people that are on the small business side are like, if I failed, no one would give two shits. They wouldn't be rescuing me right now. They would let me go out of business.
Yeah.
Why are they treating that bank differently than me?
In fact, it's so common. Don't they say, like, if a small business makes 5 years, that's a big deal?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it is so prevalent.
Yeah, and so what happens when a big bank goes out of business? Guess who takes over the demand for banking services? A company that can start up right now and get stuff going. Government, get out of the way, get the small bank to be able to compete with the consolidated. So if all we do is protect the consolidation, right, then you'll have like perpetual infinite consolidation. We don't let these companies go out of business. And so long that we allow, so the way that during that interview, there's a lot of financial institutions and a lot of big companies that are institutional owned. Okay, so the big brokerage houses, BlackRock and all the common ones, they buy up a lot of the company's stock. They sit on the boards of those companies, and then they pretty much are running those companies. So you get consolidation sort of like by proxy, where if BlackRock owns 20 of the biggest companies and they have a board seat on every one of those companies, well, BlackRock kind of owns like all those companies. So I don't think institutional ownership should be allowed in the corporate world. So severing the ability to have central rule, right, that tyrannical rule from investors. It should all be passive, where the board members are not your biggest shareholders. Your board members should be the merits of people who are elected to best represent the company and all of its branches, and limit the amount of boards that you can sit in on. Like, if you want to be the board of Amazon, cool, but that's the only board you're allowed to sit on. So limit the exposure to having single individuals have so much power and control over the decisions of different institutions. So let's just say George Soros is an investor in 20 newspapers, right? Well, that's a phenomenal amount of control. But if he wants to just do name a paper that he took control. He does radio stations, newspapers, and whatever. It's got one dude who could just say, guys, I'm running this company, and I want a liberal agenda on every newspaper. Go. Who's going to tell the...
Because the workers there were told, well, we got to sort of appease so-and-so. He's the income, basically. We need his money.
Right. And so where I can take a consistent approach, and no matter if it's a Republican or Democrat, advantage or disadvantage, I can make it uniform because now we've incorporated fairness. In the interview, I want you to, and I want to throw this out to everybody. If you listen to that Joe Rogan interview, at about the 1 hour mark, there is a single sentence contradiction where he says one thing, right?
This is Bernie.
And he says one thing about, and it has principle that I agreed with. And in the next sentence, he dismisses the entire principle when it was a Democrats rule on this side, Republicans rule on this way. So if you're against consolidated power, right, do you think the education department, which is consolidated power, do you think it's important to have consolidated power if you like how the power is consolidated, or do you think you should stay consistent?
Oh, if I like it,
Yeah.
then I'm probably going to be like, well, I like this. It benefits me, so that's what we're doing. That's not me personally. I'm just saying that's what, I'm sure happens
Yeah.
instead of consistency.
Yeah, there's no consistency
Yeah.
across this whatever it is, this zealotry, this religion of, socialist
Yeah.
Democrat principles. Like it sickens me with if we just had an experiment, we're like, fine, give Bernie his way. How quickly we would be a cluster, and why do you believe that we would be a cluster if Bernie had his way?
I don't see how anything would ever change or get better. Like it would. I'm assuming, when we were talking about the whole big corporation versus little mom and pop thing, I'm assuming he's just wanting to penalize the big. But then when does the small ever come back into equation? It's just get really big, get penalized. Like the small guy, I feel like is still like, I'm still kind of struggling here. I don't.
Well, even before that, like if you ask Bernie Sanders what makes somebody want to start a business, he would not be able to answer that. Because it's assuming that once you take the incentive off of starting a business, that people are just going to want to do it anyway. So really, whoever's in the game right now is the only people that are going to be in the game.
They want to start a business just because that's what they like to do. It's just what they want to do.
Yeah,
That was my Bernie.
Again, like we're starting with today's point in time, and we're taking for granted what made everything happen up to this point. So I'll agree that we effed a lot of things up by allowing that consolidating of power. Well, great. Let's make it disadvantage to the consolidation of power and give advantage to whatever. So now you've at least made it fair. It's not going to get any better and it's not going to get any worse. It's going to go status quo. Now, how do we get new businesses to come in? If we're going to now give the next generation a reason to get in business, what are we going to tell them? How are we going to make that pitch if we're going to include you? He used the example of like we have a shortage of doctors, right? We have an aged population. Nurses and doctors are in short supply. Okay, so why do you think we have a shortage of doctors?
I don't.
And then I'll give you Bernie's reason we have a shortage of doctors.
I don't know.
What
Is
motivates
it
someone to go in the medical field?
money?
Okay.
Maybe helping people.
Okay, helping people, money.
I guess you would think job stability. I mean, if you're curing people's and their bodies, that's always going to be a thing.
Okay. Because it's grueling school, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And so think of a doctor as an entrepreneur, because they're really close to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of an entrepreneur's career, you take phenomenal risks, like phenomenal. And nobody's around during the phenomenal risks. They usually are catching you on the side of when there's prosperity.
I would say, yeah, if it works out.
Right?
Yeah.
So on a farm, you have planting and fertilizing and planning and whatever, and then you have harvesting. There's two sides of this. And so what makes a farmer want to plant a field and do all this freaking hard work, and there's nothing to freaking eat? There's nobody to help you. There's nobody giving you, advantage or encouragement.
Yeah.
Right? It's on you. You're doing it because you're looking into the future and knowing that there's going to be a harvest.
It will be, yeah.
So I'm going to invite everyone to the bounty, right, who was there during the planting, right?
Yeah.
But in Bernie's world, there is no harvesting. It's magical. It happens. Like when you take an entrepreneur and say, hey, I want you to do a hard thing for maybe 10 years where you're going to struggle every day of your life. You're going to have nothing but despair and fear and scarcity for maybe the slight possibility that you might have lots of prosperity and be able to change the world and help people and whatever. That's the true pitch. In Bernie's world, it's like what we need with doctors. The reason doctors aren't getting in is because getting education is too expensive. So we're going to make education free. No doctor should have to pay for the education. It needs to be free, right? So, number one.
First of all, that was pretty good.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. And so, okay, this is like a 5-year-old reverse engineering how you make more doctors.
Yeah.
Right? Not having the ability to say, okay, well, what'd you do with the risk, right?
Is it only doctors are free or just free education?
Free education. Because remember, he has
if I don't want to be a doctor, do I get free education?
But he has a let's make everything free principle.
Yeah.
So every problem is solved by making it free.
Yeah.
Right?
And then if you're a teacher at that educational establishment, do you get paid still? Because
hold on. Let's make that. This is reverse engineering.
Okay.
So if you then make education free, right? Are those people, the educators, are they going to be paid really well based on tuition of people paying in, or is the government going to pay for the education? So that's number one jump that he really wants to see that happen. So then who pays the taxes to be able to pay for the education to create the doctors?
Yeah.
And it's favorite number two, the billionaires. The zillionaires, they have all this money and they're going to pay for the educators. And so you're like, okay, so what you're telling me is a government that is inept, inefficient, can't do anything right, is going to make a fair, level playing field that's going to move money around to 5 different locations from the taxpayer to the government to the NGO or the government agency to fill in the education, to go to the doctor, to pay the hospitals, right? It's going to do all that with perfect accuracy. So I'm like, okay, let's prove out all the concepts. Let's look at our collection methods, our distribution methods, how fraudulent it is, how good we are at all of that process. And then we'll actually put money through that system if we're really good at it. All it would take me 30 seconds to find out, oh yeah, we're not good at any of that stuff. That's a bad answer.
Yeah, it's always like, well, this should be free. Well, who's going to pay for that? These people? Well, okay, well then who's going to pay that? These people? Well, then who's going to pay that? These people that are paid by these people that are now not making anything because it's free. Like, it just doesn't. I am no mathematician. I am no economic professor. But I still feel like you run out of people that are paying for something. You run out of where the money's coming from.
That is a really good point because the brain dead Bernie Sanders of the world, they don't know what caused the tree to grow in the first place. So they acid test for all of this. If I were to take a small village, 20 people, has no economy, no work, and you just take your policy today and do it, does it work? And the answer is absolutely not, right? Because it doesn't work mathematically. It is predicated on that you've arrived to a resource that you didn't plant, and you are going to sacrifice somebody else's resource without ever knowing how the tree grew in the first place. So you're going to convince me that if we have an orange tree and the oranges are there, and now all of a sudden you're in charge of the oranges, right? I'm going to distribute them. And then you're going to come up to me and say, well, what about when the oranges are gone off of the tree? Then what? They don't know about the harvest. How do you get the next guy to plant a tree knowing you're going to come in and ravage my tree, take possession of it, and give it to somebody else? Am I going to plant a tree? No. You remove the reward side of the risk side. I'm not going in the sun, planting a tree, picturing Bernie Sanders taking all of my oranges. I'd be like, F no.
Aren't we then sort of paying doctors twice? Like, I'm going to pay to see you when you're a doctor, but my taxes also paid for your education to become a doctor. Well, why don't I go be a doctor? And then now we have an abundance of doctors?
No understanding of what motivates people to do things. The tyrants want to just tell you that you're going to become a doctor because I need you to be a doctor, and you're going to be really happy, even though I told you, I took your free will and your working brain away, because then I'm going to make sure that you don't have to worry about paychecks. I got you on the pay side of things. You just do what I tell you to do. I promise I won't wreck anything. And when I wreck it, it'll be his fault anyway. Right?
Yeah.
So that is the
billionaire's
internal
fault.
workings of people who are bad at math making decisions that have repercussions for other people. And that's what it is, rolling the repercussions of things to other people. So do you think there should be billionaires out there?
I feel like someone should have the ability, if they have good ideas and hard work and are able to turn something into something of value, and they happen to make a lot of money doing it. What am I going to say? Nope, you're not allowed. Come to America where we cap your
Bernie
income.
thinks that there's a cap where you should pay regular tax rates up to a certain point, and then when he feels that you've made too much, that in the past we have taxed everything over that point at 90%, right?
Yeah.
And people who are bad at math are going to think that people who make that and have that aren't going to get to the level at 90%, right?
Yeah.
To the level and just not make any more money in that department. Split it off over here, have Cousin Eddie doing the work, get to his cap, and then move it around. Nobody's going to react and adapt to any of those changes, and somehow in his brain he's going to calculate that all the billionaires are just going to keep doing that thing, and look at all this money we're going to be able to bring in from that 90% tax, right?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. What he believes is almost a religion that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and I knew that something was way off too when there was it the Senate confirmation hearing or some hearing with Linda McMahon, and Bernie was like, we need to pay our teachers more. And she's like, yeah, teachers are very valuable. And he's like, would you say that all teachers everywhere should make at least $60,000 a year, no less? And she's like, well, I mean, I have to take a look at it. I have to take a look at where they are. He's like, no, you're saying we got to pay teachers. All teachers everywhere should make no less than $60,000 a year. Wouldn't you agree? And she's like, I mean, where are they living? What's the cost of living there? What are they doing? Like, what is the effectiveness of the teacher? Like, she had all these questions. She's like, I can't just blanket statement that. And he's like, oh, so you're saying teachers should not be paid? You do not think teachers should be paid well? She's like, not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying a lot more goes into that. And he's like, all right, we're done here. We're done. You're saying you don't want to pay teachers a fair wage. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, you really think that it should just be, I want to make $100,000 a year and you should just give it to me. Just give it to me. But what about, you don't want me to thrive? You don't want me to succeed? Why can't you just give it to me? Well, a lot goes into where the money's coming from, and he just wants, nope, we just want to say we did all this stuff.
It's flawed logic. And I wish anybody listening out there that wants to come at me with any of the logic that I might be missing, that maybe there is, emotional appeals aside, if there's actually some math that I'm missing here. Because I don't understand it, and I can point it out a million times, and it feels good because you're just saying that you're going after the person I dislike anyway. It's really tough for the billionaires, and it sounds good to say teachers should be paid more, right?
Yeah.
But in a business world, in a mathematics world, that doesn't exist.
Right.
You know what exists? You pay for value on things, right? You have a relationship between $1 and a loaf of bread, right? And if the loaf of bread, if you have $20, and the loaf of bread isn't as valuable as your $20, then you don't buy the bread. So the relationship with value. So should a valuable thing be paid for? Yes. And then if you said, should a teacher be paid more than $60,000? Then I would say, is the value of the teacher greater or less than $60,000? If yes, then yes. If no, then no.
Yeah. And even in the healthcare system, I've seen medical professionals that one was like, oh my gosh, they listened, they found me an answer, we got a game plan, it was everything I needed, and I absolutely would come to them again and pay this money. And then I've gone to some where it was like, this medical appointment was a complete and utter waste of time and money. There should be no reason I have to be here. This is dumb. We found no answers. I saw you for 5 minutes, and here's all the money. So it's like, what? When?
Zero value.
Yes.
Zero value. All right. So next topic. the employee-owned companies. Okay, he's a big fan that more companies should be owned by employees. His argument is that that the effort that you put into the company when you know you're part of ownership of it is greater. Which, again, I agree with that.
There's a couple
Right?
that do that. Yeah.
Right. So, what is then how entitled are you to the spoils of the company that you didn't build? You just work there. So, for instance, you take a group of 100 people, right? And you're like, we want to own this company. And then we show you a couple of plots of land. You buy the property, you build the foundation, you construct the building, you order the machines, you build the processes, you make your hires. So you were at the planting stage, right? Or do you want to bypass the whole planting stage and just get like a full order book and the machines are already there and the risk was already taken and the
I just
that's
buy
what-
into a successful
So-
company.
this must be what a company is. You just
Yeah.
are here, right?
Yeah.
And so those are easy when employees like buy the company that's already established. But what do they owe back to the person that planted the field when they're looking up like, I was doing the hard stuff to get to that phase, and you watched a bunch of people just take the oranges at the last minute, and I'm not going to do that shit again if all you do is turn over ownership to people who think that they're entitled to the fruit, but they don't want to be entitled to anything that came before the fruit.
Yeah, there's a company down south, I think. It gives the employees the option to own a portion after so many whatever. It's like
Yep.
after so many years, after so many levels of work, after whatever. Then now, congratulations, you've been here so long, you've put in so much time and effort. Here's your ability to become now own a portion of this or something. Would you agree with that?
Hell no.
No?
No.
Okay.
All right, so we deal with companies that in Youngstown we have an economy that does dips and peaks and dives a lot, right? And so you know who struggles the most with that are multi-generational companies. They've handed over to their son hands it over to their son, and whatever. Well, the original dude built the thing, right? So when you take a dive and things look bleak, they know how to rebuild it again because they built it the first time. The second generation has no fucking clue how to put the thing together. So when it dives, they just bail. Like, they don't know what to do. So if you have companies that are, if you had a straight line where a company just does good forever, then yes, you can have employee ownership because then it's just managing what's already been established. But
That's
you
what
have
this one seems like.
You have one rocky deal, and everybody's looking at each other like, what do we do? I don't know how to plant this stuff. Like, how do we get customers? How do we expand? How do we do capital improvements? Like, they're clueless because they didn't put the sweat equity in to build it the first time. So they're clueless how, if they had to do it again, they couldn't do it because they weren't there.
So would you say maybe the option to become part owner comes from maybe not even so much how long they're there, but how they're involved? You know, like if you're, I think the organization I'm thinking of down south is a chicken plant. If you're working in the actual plant slicing chicken on a conveyor belt, you're probably dealing with different responsibilities that an admin is that's in the office outside of the plant. Just different set of responsibilities. So would you say one maybe is on a track to ownership and the other is not? Or anybody can be based on how long you've been there?
Again, my acid test is I'm going to put you on an island and see how capable you are of actually creating this business in the first place, and then you can operate the created business because I trust that you can redo it if could. So we had one company that they were in an industry that wasn't a chicken plant. Like, chicken plants kind of easy because we're always going to do chicken, right?
Yeah.
But this was in an industry that technology could bypass them. And when you walk into the room, there were 30 salespeople, there were about 50 people in the plant, and then they had 5 administrators, right? And then in 2008-ish, the economy dove exactly what would happen. The industry that was supported wasn't quite what it was. And the second generation, because this was an 80-year-old company, so we were already on second generation going into third generation. And so what do you think the salespeople were the highest paid people in the company? So the second generation people dispatched all of the salespeople because they needed to save that money on their balance sheet, right? And they got rid of all the salespeople. So then it was just the people working in the plant and the administrators that were working at the place. Zero salespeople. Administrators like, I'll just do enough sales. Sales is easy. I'll just go ahead and do that. And I'm thinking as a consultant saying, no, your salespeople keep incoming orders coming through this place. They are your most important. Maybe get rid of some of the bad ones, the ones that aren't putting it up. But you need a salesperson more than you need administrators. But they kept all of the administrative staff instead of hacking the administrative staffs that were making poor decisions. The nepotism and, Cousin Eddie and that's sitting in his office in the air conditioning. Those are the guys that should have gotten rid. But as soon as they make, again, all of those companies, when they employee own, will make that same kind of decision. They didn't earn into it. They didn't build it. They have an operational understanding of it. And if you have a majority of people who are just there for the paycheck, when things get tough, you're done. And my hope is that we allow companies to fail. If you're a believer in the evolution of the human species, the thing that makes us strong is the frictions that make us strong and the death of the things that shouldn't be alive in the first place. So if you don't allow the ones that should die to die, then they zombify, right? That was actually a good bumper sticker saying. If you don't let the ones that die, they will just zombify. Do you like that?
We're going to make that. Copyright that idea.
Yeah. Let's see. The biggest problem with social vision is the fact eventually you run out of other people's money. If you don't have an appreciation for the people who create the people who start, right? The people who can do it. If you take them for granted and you take your innovators and you diminish their input to your economy, they're not going to be around forever. And in fact, they're not going to even stick around. They're going to go to a place where they can do their innovations. And then who you're left, you have all consumers. And the consumers are all looking at each other like, hey, who's going to make this shit? Not me. I'm a consumer. Like, you better make it. And then you just have to start telling people to make your shit because you're not going to do it. And you do not want to. And this is my socialized medicine and healthcare. It's the same math, right?
Yeah.
Why does Canada... Why are they able to give people pharmaceuticals that are cheap?
Why are they able to give pharmaceuticals that are cheap?
Yeah, inexpensive or free drugs to citizens of Canada. Okay, you're a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
All right, you're going to go to Canada and you're going to develop a bunch of drugs so you can hand them over to the government. They can get them out to free. Are you going to develop drugs?
No.
Why would you not?
Because you're taking any value away from it.
You devalued it by giving it away for free and not people making appreciation. So Canada then needs the United States to develop the drugs, right? Take the risk, go through the permitting, go through the regulatory process, develop the drugs, and then spend them in our economy, make a bunch of money, and then they're like, we'll give Canada some, right?
Yeah.
But the innovation curve is dependent on the free market to be able to create the drugs. If they're already created, then you're like, oh, they should be free. But it's not realizing that if you run out of the innovation on what you can distribute, nobody's going to make any anymore. So you need someone to have the free market making the stuff, right? So then you can give it away for free in your country, but don't expect without force any of those companies to willingly come there and innovate drugs. Now, I'm not suggesting pharmaceutical industry is run properly at all. We're using a simple explanation to define, same thing with war. Why the heck is the United States required to bomb someplace in Iran? Why? Because we have the military, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have the military? Why doesn't Israel have those bombs? Because they know they could just have the U.S. to do it. Now, what if you run out of the United States? There's no United States. We get rid of all of our military. Now everybody's looking around like, oh, we were kind of dependent on the United States to do all our heavy lifting. They're the ones that would just pay high tariffs. They're the ones that would rescue us when we needed it. They had to be involved in anywhere. We're like non-interventionists, right? We're out. We're not doing any more. Then Europe would be like, oh, shit, like we've got some enemies around us. We don't have the United States to come to our rescue. I mean, we got to develop our own military. But what about our socialized medicine? Oh, we can't do socialized medicine because nobody's developing drugs from it anymore. So it's the third generational people that have no idea how to build it in the first place, making all these decisions on once the innovations they think are done, and then realizing we don't have no more orange trees to scalp the oranges from. Why isn't anybody developing drugs, right?
Yeah.
Why isn't anybody making military bombs and, training special forces? We're necessary as that free market, and we need to go more free market, not less.
So then, would you say more advantages to the starters, to the people starting out?
Yep. You need to pad the motivations, why people do it in the first place, and you need to give every advantage to the people that are doing the hard work, and you need to limit, right, the non-value creators. Me sitting on a board making $5 million is not adding $5 million worth of that. And every person that invests in the company that controls that board needs to know what value every person is. I'm saying teachers, executives, if they don't carry their weight in what their compensation is, they're negating the value of their position across the board. So what does a CEO, what do they deserve? How do you figure out if a CEO is underpaid or overpaid?
Somebody told me one time it's what is the how I guess how heavy or how big is the importance of their decisions. Like, if you are making extremely important, valuable decisions in this leadership position, that's why you're making the big bucks, so to speak, is like...
Well, the only way to
me.
test it is the Steve Jobs theory, right? So Steve Jobs was the innovator behind Apple, and then the board dispatched him and kicked him out, and Apple's value went down. So you got to see the with Steve Jobs value and the without Steve Jobs value. And then you can look at it and say, oh, shit, like, we're out of business without Steve Jobs. So how much would you pay Steve Jobs to be at the helm of your company? I would say infinite, right? Because it's zero versus anything means infinite. If we can afford them, we're going to take them. And then there's some people who I could take them out right now and you would never effing notice. The company wouldn't be dependent on them. The value wouldn't be dependent on them, especially if they're really bad. They might be carrying a negative net value on what they do. And what do you think the board's job is to elect people that add value to the company? And if I'm a shareholder, that's what I'm most interested about. But now it's lazy, dumb people who fetch a name, right? You can't even tell me what they're good at.
Yeah.
And they make a bunch of money and they just kind of sitting there. Like the Disney thing, like this Bob Iger, whoever was before Bob Iger, like I cannot believe that there aren't riots in the streets over that selection.
I don't know this. Bob Iger?
So the Disney properties and
behind.
entertainment, the parks, the movies, all of that kind of stuff, they had a bulletproof brand. And they went around with some cultural pressures to do certain things and build into the brand. And they made a lot of poor decisions.
Yeah.
And the brand was decimated. Now, I have a lot of, I like Bob Iger as a CEO. I think he's a very capable person. But I think that he hasn't made the realizations to right the ship. And Disney is still hurting. Like, if you had an impenetrable brand, if I'm on the board, I'm saying protect and preserve the nature of my brand at all costs.
Yeah.
We're dependent on it. Consumers are dependent on it. Shareholders are dependent on it. I'm not going to take a risk, be wrong, and be like, oh, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you think Target almost did that?
Yes. Budweiser, Bud Light.
I feel like Target went, oh crap. They reined that right back.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, and that is these social risks. You got these activists that get in a CEO position, right? These hippies, and they're like, I'm going to wield this brand around and put everybody at risk. But guess what? The risk falls on the investors and consumers, not on the person making the decision. So when it's almost like the same entrepreneur thing. When you're an entrepreneur, you make all the decisions, but guess what? You get all of the downside.
Yeah.
If you're a worker or a regular person, you want all the upside. You don't want any of the risk and downside. So those are not your creators out there. Those are your consumers.
Yeah.
And so when I look at compensations, like if Bernie said some CEOs, he's going to say CEOs make too much money. I'm going to say, well, Probably not. There's
yeah.
some high value ones that should, but do I think CEOs as a category, there are a lot of people that are overpaid and way less valuable than they're paying? Absolutely. So what's our decision? My decision would be boards need to take their responsibilities seriously and cut out the valueless or net losses on their board seats and get rid of the CEOs and the executives before the salespeople, right?
Yeah.
Just like in my example from before. If not, then corporations that
Like, if not, what are you the executive of?
exactly the executive third generational dumbbells
Yeah.
that really are overvalued.
It's a good
and
thing we're
overpriced.
all sitting here feeling important when we don't even have a company to run anymore.
Because then all the socialists are going to do is use the really bad actors that got put in those positions because they're activists as the corporate template. And it's not the case. You want to take real innovators, the Elon Musks, the John McAfee's, the people who invented industries altogether.
Yeah.
Those know how they were there when it was nothing and they made it into something. Even Bill Gates, I don't give him a lot of credit, but he forged it, right? He forged it from nothing to make it something. Now, if somebody bought Microsoft in flow, I wouldn't have as much respect for them because I know if it were a nothing software company, they couldn't make it. But right now we subsidize pseudo innovation, right? The process of innovation. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. So these are innovation squatters, right?
Okay.
So what they do, instead of me, like if I made a product and I took it from design, I took it prototype, I did distribution, I did marketing, I did the, making the warehousing and automating and hiring my salespeople, full respect for that process. If I'm like, I've got a really good idea and I don't know how to do anything, I'm going to write down the design idea. I'm going to get it patented, and then I'm going to sell my design to somebody else and let someone else who's good at it, produce the product. Right? That's pseudo innovation because part of the entrepreneur, the risk, there's no risk in that. You made the design, you put a couple $100 in for a couple $1,000 in for a patent, and you just offloaded it as a commodity. That's not someone who I think would be capable of feeding the innovations into our system when all you did was a drawing and a draft. There's so much friction that goes into making good products and services. You almost have to go through the whole process as an innovator to have a really good handle on what it is that you're even doing.
This kind of sort of makes me think of the military. I never really understood why. So in the military, there's like two tracks. The NCOs and the non-commissioned officers and the commissioned officers. So like you have your officers obviously follow this sort of classroom education-based track that they are less out in the field, more in a classroom learning about tactics and different things. And then they are the bosses of the other track that is out in the field, doing the work, carrying everything through that they're learning about. And I never understood that. I said, how is it the people doing it, involved in it, experiencing it, are under the people that went to a classroom and said, well, yeah, but we learned about it in class and we were told about it. And so now we're going to tell you how to do it. And they're like, but we literally just did it. Would you not listen to... And I used to ask my husband this, and I said, I don't understand that logic. And he would just say, well, hopefully you get a good officer that realizes you have the experience and they take your input and they listen to your
So
input.
would you trust one of those brass wearing nice, commissioned officers that went through basic training and they served their time and they did their tours and they went through all of the experiences of a soldier and achieved that level by going through the shit?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so how many of the military never had to serve on the bottom tier? And it's like, you're making decisions on behalf of experiences that you don't physically have?
Yeah. I don't get it. Like, and you can't cross to the, I mean, I guess you could cross to the other, but it's like the NCOs and the people in it and working out in the field, so to speak, they can reach a certain level in that end. But these people reach a higher level on this track that is still over that, having never done that. And I'm just like, I don't understand that logic. I just don't get it.
So do you think every CEO should have the entrepreneur in the origin. Building companies should be executives.
I feel like, yeah.
I think I'm right there with you.
I feel like you need to like work up to something.
Do you think that politicians that vote and craft law that has to do with payrolls and taxes should have had to author payroll and taxes at some point in their life?
Probably.
Right?
I mean, I had a really good friend of mine when we were younger. Always used to say, you want to own a business. I want to own a business. I want to own a business. I want to run a business. And I said, okay, well, let's start with this. Have you ever held a managerial position? No. And I said, okay, have you ever had any responsibility other than like ground level of something? No. And I said, so you want to go from crawling to sprinting is what you're telling me.
You want the oranges. The oranges are good. It really does.
Yeah.
I want to have the oranges, but the 6 months of nurturing the tree is part of the oranges, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want this part isn't for you. You're just a consumer. Being a consumer is a luxury. You don't have to be invested or involved in the purchase. You just have to trade value for something. Maybe I'm an engineer over here and you're an orange person over there. I use my engineering to put equipment together so that you can do your farming and then you actually make the oranges. So when we go to trade, I give you a fair rate for whatever it is that you're trading me, and we're both happy. I did my part, you did your part. We're both happy to do that transaction time and again. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't have to be an orange farmer to appreciate your ability to farm oranges, and you don't have to be an engineer to appreciate that my engineering prowess is what made you, wealthier because you can sell more oranges. But when you have so many negative net value people offering what they think is their insights into the marketplace, and then you take the corruption of governments that picks those winners and losers, we've arrived at our problem. We have terrible people, corrupted environment, and so we've established how we got where we are. So now what do we do? How do we get to the point where we take a value proposition angle on everything that we do? Okay, you know what value you're getting, and you just decide that you're not entering in any transactions that we're not getting a good value. You're not dealing with people who give negative values. We're not giving it away. We're not a charity anymore. We are just giving we're gonna drop bombs on that target for you, and that's gonna cost you $526 billion. The invoice is in the mail. You pay the invoice, we drop the bombs for you. Now we have a good transaction. Now you got to consider whether or not it's important enough to you, right? To write the check to pay for the value of what you're being asked to do from you. That's the deal making.
But there's always this manipulation of like, well, you're not just doing it for me. You're doing it because you could be in harm's way too. So do it for you, and it'll benefit me.
But that's not math. That's the Bernie Sanders, where it'll just be okay. If we do really dumb things that don't make transactional sense, in the end, it will just all work out. And then I look at it and say...
But you went at it at an emotional appeal.
You went an emotional appeal. You did something that made you feel good, and you broke an entire system that you don't have a way of fixing because you inherited where we're at. So let's just say we live in a civilized world where people aren't murdering each other, there's no killing, whatever. So we inherited a world that was crafted by religious people, Christians, Jewish people who respected life, and we didn't like the medieval times where people went around killing each other because they wanted to. The Dark Ages were dark for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And so we inherited that today, and we're like, oh, okay, things are pretty good. We're not killing each other. But if you don't know what it took to get to the point where we weren't murderous, then you're very likely to trade back all of the things that got you in the murderous predicament. And we're like, oh, we don't need this freaking religion. We'll just come to moral conclusions. And we're like, oh, why is everybody murdering each other? Why nobody's fearing God?
Like history will repeat itself
right.
if you don't learn.
Because the second and third generation don't know what it was like to plant the field. They just thought the oranges produced themselves. So they make decisions as if oranges are always going to be there. Why do I keep referring to this oranges thing? It became synonymous.
Summertime
with the consumers. But anyway, that's the true math, and all of this is achievable, but at the same time, it's not. Without tyranny.
This might be kind of a dumb question and only loosely related, but I keep thinking like, isn't that kind of what we all do with the stock market? Is we buy into something that is already doing well or not doing well in the hopes of sort of benefiting from it, owning a portion of it, really not having done anything to get it there. I mean, I know it's different, but
well, the stock market is a useful tool for extreme growth in business. So think of the stock market as a bank, right? Mm-hmm. So if I had this company and I issued 100 shares, I would own all the shares and I would sell some to you. You would give me money for those shares. You would be entitled to a portion of the growth that whatever you gave the money. Well, if I'm good at my job, I take the money that you gave me and expand my company. Well, I expanded the company, so your shares are worth more, right? And so if I need more money, I sell some more of my shares, you give me some more money. So it's more like a fluid bank of expansion. Companies then buy back stock after they've grown, so that in the future, when they're ready for growth, can reissue those shares back to the marketplace, raise some more capital to do some more growth and expansion. That's the system of the stock market. From a consumer standpoint, it's a different thing. You buy into a really small portion of a company. It appreciates in value, like that suggests. But it's kind of like you lose the grasp of the reason you're doing that is because you trust the people that are going to grow the company, and then it grows, and then you benefit from that company's growth.
It's like it's gambling.
It's not really gambling.
It feels like legal gambling. It
Nah.
feels like,
I mean, it is.
I'm going to put my money in here and hope you do well.
But that's the entrepreneurial risk. You are taking a risk. Now, if you own stocks and you didn't know the company, and you didn't know the product, and you didn't know the executive team, that would be a gamble. But you're buying in the fact that if I gave this dude $100, is he going to push it through a machine that then buys more equipment, hires more people, and makes more money? It's not really a gamble when you're investing in a person.
You're hoping your investment affects something that then
not hope. No,
return.
if you know that a company uses that money to do growth and expansion, then it's almost a mathematical certainty that that
you're like, I'm
will
investing, grow. Then you'll do well, and then you make me money because I
invested. But if you put it in the analogy with the entrepreneurs, you take a risk when you plant a seed that the tree doesn't grow. Right? It's not a sure thing that you put it in. You do a lot of things that make it likely that you're going to have oranges, but you took the risk and made an investment, did the work to make the tree grow. Right? So you don't know when you put money in the stock market whether or not that money is going to get into the company and they're going to put it in cash and not do anything with it and not grow the company. That's the same kind of passive risk, but the disconnection is consumers want a sure thing. They want to show up, they want to get paid with 100% certainty. They want to make an investment, get paid with certainty. So there's no risk in the consumer era because nobody's willing to do something with the gamble of it not having some kind of payoff. Entrepreneurs make those risks so long that when it does pay off, it's big enough that it makes it worthwhile to take the risk in the first place. And when you socialize things, you remove the risk and reward relationship because you've made everything a sure thing. And it's like, the way that these things came to fruition were from people taking risks. And now we've shunned the risk takers for the consumers. If you have a consumer-based economy where all the advantages are given to the consumers, then you limit the upside potential of taking a risk like developing a drug, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
It's like finding that extremely delicate balance.
And it is true that if you don't have balance where it's all entrepreneurs with no consumers, that doesn't work. And if you have all consumers with no entrepreneurs, that doesn't work either.
Yeah.
So you have to know that the engineer and the planter are both super important, and you can't pit one against the other. They both play an important role.
Oh, we are 100% pitted against each other. It's like, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to help consumers. But if I get too big, the consumers now hate me.
Again, we're on the precipice for that relationship breaking down. And when there's nobody else willing to make the next generation of things, then we're going to be clamoring like, why is there no doctors, right?
Yeah.
He's totally confused when he says that. We don't have enough doctors. And his reason, because he's limited to college is too expensive, is the only reason that we don't have any doctors. Not that litigation against doctors and insurance premiums and controlled Medicare payments and forcing doctors to take. None of that stuff is the reason we don't have any doctors. I talk to
Yeah.
doctors all the time, right? And you know
Yeah.
what? The other things is the reason that they're not participating, the upside.
The whole like, oh, I'm running behind on my patients because I've been in the office fighting with these companies to get paid all dang day long. I wouldn't want to do
Now,
that.
I'm going to mention RFK Jr., right? And you cannot go down that boulevard on the thing over here.
All right.
But-
None of the no topics.
But, and I didn't even know that they were hammering on this, but they are going after insurance. What is that? Pre-authorizations?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's someone who's taking the construct of where the most cost is coming from. And if you're saying, okay, well, doctors are over litigated, insurance premiums are too high. Somebody then takes aim at the thing that's costing and see if we can mitigate the cost expenditures, right? Instead of it being so pro insurance company and so, at the expense of the doctor, let's create a balance between that where we're accomplishing both things.
Yeah.
But that's important.
Are we allowed to talk about insurance? That's not one of the no.
No, we're allowed to talk insurance.
just
Just
can't-
not what insurance does.
Yeah. Just like more and more I hate the idea of insurance. And like since we've been talking about this idea of like why don't you just treat the healthcare like a business and you pay for services would make so much more sense. Like
Out of pocket.
yes. Like for example, recently, if there was a specialist I wanted to go see. Oh, you know about this issue I'm having. I want to come see you about it and talk about it, whatever. And then the specialist says, oh, okay, but you have to have a doctor's referral. I do? Yes, you have to. And insurance. Fine. Now I go pay for a doctor's referral to discuss a topic that the doctor knows nothing about and says, go talk to the specialist about it. Right? I'm trying to, but it's required that I come see you first so that then you say, yeah, go see the specialist. Thanks. Thanks for that time and money. Totally wasted. And then you go to the specialist and then your insurance is like, oh, but we don't pay for specialists. You have to pay out of pocket anyways. Well, why did I have to just go pay this person for absolutely no reason and then come back here and you're not helping me anyways? Why can't I just say, if I'm paying for it, let me go where I want to go and just pay that?
There's a group of doctors that opted out of the scams of insurance and Medicare and Medicaid, and they do not accept any of that. They are cash. You go in
Yeah.
there, you need something, you see a person that went to college, they figure out what they need to charge you per hour, and you pay them the amount that they give you in services. You don't pay on months that you don't use them, and you don't have to, overpay. You pay just for what you get. And that is a true marketplace. We've killed what insurance even means in this country. What is insurance? Give me your definition of what is insurance.
What is insurance?
Yes.
Insurance is that I feel as though if my money is going to something, I'm going to get something for it. Like, this is my insurance, as though I may not need it now. I might need it later. I'm going to pay into it now. And then later when I need it, it's there for me.
Incorrect. Let me give you the definition of
It's
insurance.
what I want it to be.
So here's the deal. You and I are going to go out there and we're going to have it set up a lemonade stand.
yeah.
Okay. We can't control the weather. So I need to ensure that we're going to have enough money to do the lemonade stand. So it cost me $500 to set up my lemonade stand in labor, materials, the opportunity of going out in the parking lot. And then I'm like, well, what if it rains? There's a situation that if it rains, then my $500 is gone. So I'm going to go to
Yeah.
a company and say, hey, can you insure me against rain? And they're going to say, here's the deal. Give me your date, give me what you're doing, give me your setup, give me all of the stuff around you, right? We're going to look at weather patterns. We're going to look at the almanac. And we're going to say, I'm going to arrive at a percentage chance it's going to rain. It's going to be 9%. Now, if I take 10 companies that want to insure against, and they all give me money, 9% of the time on the actuary table, it's going to rain. So I'm going to have a payout that equals $500 to 9% of the people that show up, right? Or 9 people that have the insurance. So the insurance company then covers everybody, all 10 of us, right? And 9% of the 10 of us are going to have a rainout day. And then So what should my premium be on that if I wanted to give an insurance company the ability to make money so that they can do what they do, check the almanac and do an actuary table and have a statistician to figure out the math behind it, have a collector to be able to process your invoices. We'll say 50% markup on stuff. So what are my costs in that scenario of the math I just gave you?
Oh my God, you make me do math.
Okay, it's $500. I'm going to have to pay out $500 to one of the 10 people because there's a 9% chance of rain. So 50% markup on my cost would mean that I'm going to charge $1,000, right? My payout's going to be $500. My income's going to be $1,000,
Yeah.
right? And so what do I charge all 10 of you? What's your portion of it? $100.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm charging $100 to each one of the 10 lemonade stand people, knowing that I'm going to have a $500 payout. $500 is going to my operations, and now we just insured against something. So
Yeah.
health insurance means that you are insuring against something that happens to you that you can't afford. Right? You can go to the doctor and pay for a visit. You can afford that. So you don't insure against things you can afford. You insure things against that you can't afford. So if you get a cancer treatment, it's $100,000, and the actuaries go in there and figure out what the likelihood of you and your habits and your nutrition and your decisions, what the chances are that you are going to get cancer, do a 50% markup, divide it everybody in the pool, and charge the people against that cancer treatment in your premium. That's how math freaking works. Right now, I don't want to pay for medical. I'm just going to give you all of my medical money, and then you're going to just pay for everything, right? And then we allowed, because it's not a value proposition, now you don't care what people are charging. So what did an insurance company do? They're not doing a 50% markup on what they charge. They want hundreds of percent of markup. Why? Because consumers aren't even looking at them. They're making the doctors argue with the insurance companies, and the doctors just want to get paid too. It's only when you piss off the consumers because it's too expensive, and you piss off the doctors because it's too expensive, the insurance companies have to say, oh, there's nobody protecting us now. People are going to stop paying for us, and then Bernie Sanders comes along like, no, we're going to protect you, insurance companies. We're going to make sure nobody gets any money. Instead of just fixing the math and saying, let's just insure against things people can't afford, limit the amount that insurance companies have a reasonable amount that they can charge the people who are paying the premiums, and make it so that it's not the doctor's responsibility to dick around with insurance companies. Who should be dicking around with insurance companies? The people who are paying for things. If I want insurance company have to be easy to freaking deal with.
Yeah.
You're not going to offload your responsibility to me, right?
Yeah.
If I want to be covered, I got to do some things as a portion of the investment of me being insured.
And why do we have to have it?
Because we offloaded, we consolidated the power out to people that weren't under your control. We gave that responsibility to somebody else, and we took all of our oversight away from it. Let's just say, we'll use the bread example.
Okay.
You go to the grocery store, you give your money to the grocery store, and they give you bread. Every transaction, you can see if it was a good deal or a bad deal and whether or not you wanted to do it anymore. So I'm like, I'm the socialist sales pitcher, right? So I'm like, hey, go and get in bread. That is just, it's too hard, right? It's very inconvenient for you. Let's make it so that bread just gets delivered to your door. And you're like, oh, that's pretty tempting that you're going to take, I don't have to go to the grocery store to me. That's really convenient. But now, like, I'm just going to have you give me the money that you were spending on bread. Now you're disconnected from the transaction. You don't know if the bread's expensive or not because you're giving all the money to me. All I have to do is make sure you're getting bread delivered to your door. But every month I'm like, hey, I want to let you know my costs have gone up a little bit. I'm going to have to charge you a little bit more for bread. And now your rates go up, right? You're still just getting the same bread. I'm like, and you're like, well, what about the whole mathematics is changing? Why is it getting more expensive? Oh, I got to hire more people, and I got to have delivery. Gas is super expensive. Regulatory environment, it's just expensive. When you compare, if you bought it yourself to what it takes to be delivered, there's going to be a day you're like, bread's like $50 right now. And I do not believe that bread should cost $50. Either I can just go back to buying bread myself and get my relationship with the bread dealers. But hold up, right? since everybody did this, now the grocery store doesn't even deal with customers directly. They push it all through the bread dealers. They even give wholesale rates to make it convenient for them. And now through this whole network of things, nobody's controlling the transactions for bread. Now nobody can make a decision why it's more expensive, because it's this complicated yarn cluster that nobody has any controls over. We consolidate it and push power to other people to make decisions on our behalf, and they're terrible at making decisions. The only response to that is go do it yourself, get personally invested into it, find out what the real value is on things, and cut those people out of it because they're terrible at their jobs. Solving the world's problems one at a time. All right, Jerry says, what about seeing a specialist, but insurance telling you need 20 sessions of physical therapy before will allow an MRI, and then can get surgery when specialists feel surgery is the only fix? Yeah, if you need bread, you're also going to have to get peanut butter and jelly because they are along with it. So in order to get your bread, which you really want, I'm going to leverage you to buy all these other things. Like if you want to take an engineering class, right? Yeah. You've got to take the lesbian dance theory, and you've got to take pottery, and you've got to take Irish bagpiping, right, along with it. Because once they have the control, they can force other sales on you that are related, because it's a money-making operation. It's not what you really need.
Oh, yeah. My biggest example of another reason they're just evil is like when I was pregnant years ago, I was one of those like miserable pregnant people that was just 24/7 nauseated and sick all the time. And so I ended up taking the drug Zofran with my first pregnancy to help try to ease some nausea. Well, luckily, baby was okay, but all these studies came out. Pregnant women should never take Zofran. Zofran can be very detrimental to pregnancy, birth defects, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So I get pregnant again with the sickness and the nausea. And my doctor's office is like, all right, no Zofran, a lot of new studies. We're not doing that. There is a much safer drug you can do. What does the insurance company say? We'll cover that safer drug, but first you have to go on Zofran. And I'm like, but the drug that they just said is bad and pregnant women shouldn't take it and can cause birth defects. Well, show us that doesn't work for you. And if you take it and you still feel sick, then we'll cover the safer drug. And I'm like, what? I did take it. It is bad for me. Where's my safer drug? And it got to the point where the doctor's office was like, we got free samples. We'll hook you up like to get you through. And I'm just like, what kind of an evil bastard is like, no, you still have to do that then.
All right. Those symptoms are, okay, so we said that large corporations that have ownership groups, whatever, they create these protocols that don't make any sense whatsoever. They just exist on paper because they're not connected with a transaction that makes any sense. Small companies, small enterprises are nimble. You can talk to them. That flower shop down the street, they can have a conversation with you and they won't make dumb decisions. So when we outsource, it will happen 100% of the time. Big corporations, big governments, big businesses are all very inefficient and do dumb things because they don't know, their goal is not to be better or do better things. Do you think Best Buy cares if they lose you as a customer? Do you think AT&T cares if they lose you as a customer? Do you think Bob's cell phone shop, who you know and talk to, really wants you as a customer?
Yeah.
Who's likely to do things that have a high profitability, knowing that my marketing can bring in 10,000 new customers, and if I lose 5,000 of them, no big shit. As long as it makes sense on that paper, I don't care about losing 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Guess what I'll do? If when I run out of customers, I'll make a new brand, I'll make a new company, somebody else will buy me out, and then you'll forget that you hate AT&T and now Verizon's the new company. You have no idea that you're supposed to hate Verizon because they just bought out the intellect of the corporation that you outsource to. So we can't complain about this. Every choice that we have, we give it to the really big, dumb companies that do this kind of shit. Business, medical, academics, it all has become that. That is what you deal with when you consolidate the power that Bernie Sanders hates so much. So we don't do more of it. We don't do healthcare that's governed by it when it's going to be this big dumb institution that makes poor decisions. I don't
fix
get
the
it.
issue. Don't keep chipping away at one portion.
Yes.
Keep it from happening again.
Take a lot of individuals who can make better decisions and give them the advantage, and take the advantage of the corrupt, dumb systems of consolidated corporate.
Chris Krista says, know your appeal rights with health insurance. There are so many missteps that can happen with the number of people who touch those transactions.
Yes. Deal with individuals, even if it's more expensive, even if it's more of a inconvenience. The overall philosophy is do not give business to people who do not care about you. There are plenty of businesses that do almost everything that you need that you can deal with. It has to be the consumers that start writing it. You start supporting small business that does care, and then the corporate isn't given the support advantage. They might have still institutional and regulatory and tax advantages and political advantages because they can outspend the shit out of you. You think a person like Bernie Sanders, who appeals to voters that he has a lot of individual donors, right? His support comes from individual donors.
Yeah.
And you don't think that his political career was made on the backs of the corporate entities funding his campaigns and giving him the lobbying dollars, right?
Yeah.
That he goes in front of the podium and impugns, right?
Yeah. It was funny when he was talking to RFK Jr. about that. And RFK's like, Bernie, look at the list. You're like on the top of the list of people that take money from big corporations. And he's like, no. The workers.
Individual donors.
The workers. They might work there. They're the ones. And he's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, dumb. How about this scenario with the healthcare thing? Offices that will give a discount to cash-paying patients that do not have insurance. And then if they find out you do have insurance, they take the discount away. You have to use your insurance. And then the person says, well, can I just get rid of my insurance? Doesn't benefit me anyways, and then you'd give me a discount. Nope, not allowed. Like, I just feel like this system is just meant to somehow screw you in any way
No, it's
possible.
just dumb. I'm telling you, it's not nefarious. It's just stupid.
It's just dumb.
It's just very...
It screws you out of just being dumb, not nefarious.
But because what you can do, again, plopping somebody out, you take a group of doctors that says, I'm not going to just play that game, and you put them on their own island and operate without all of the controls and regulatory burdens and all the, red tape and strings that are attached to everything, and they can operate with market forces. You go in, you pay the money, they give you services, you're done. You don't have to do anything else.
Yeah.
The only reason like an office that's playing the game a little bit still has the expenses of a room full of people who have to fight with insurance companies. So even if you take your one consumer that goes there and you get the discount, well, they still have the operating liabilities from having to serve the other customers. They can't parse out the dealing with you and somehow make that whole floor of insurance company fighters. This group over here doesn't even have a floor of insurance company fighters because they don't do that. All of that cost that they don't have to put up there is saved, and they're able to offer the true service transaction directly to the consumer.
So, okay, I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah.
So hopefully this doesn't not make sense. I can remember when I had a baby in the hospital, my portion that I had to pay for that was $35. And I was like, I had a baby in a hospital for $35? That's a deal. All right, this must be good insurance. Now, had there been no insurance, it's just you pay yourself. Most people would say, oh my God, there's no way I could afford to have this major procedure. You're giving birth, you're staying in a hospital, you have all these different things. There's no way someone could afford that. But would you say then, if it were this world of no insurance you pay, the cost of that would be lower? Or do you still think it would be really high and people would be like, how the heck do I do that?
Well, the doctors that are modeling what true market costs are, right? If you're dealing with them, and let's just say you took your true insurance premium, okay? What gets taken out of your check and what your employer pays for, and you just stuck that in an account. And you just paid your medical fees to the group of doctors who don't play the insurance game. If you're healthy, right, you will have money left over in that account, right? If you are not healthy, then maybe you change your health decisions so that you become healthier, so your insurance costs. So if you want to devalue things, if you want your insurance premiums to be $35 out of pocket, and you just want to make all of the health decisions that you want to make over there, then you have costs that you are disconnected from. You don't feel the effects of your decisions in the marketplace. You've outsourced your decisions to other people, and you're hopeful that they're smart enough and have you in mind when spending those dollars and making those decisions. The likelihood is zero that that's what's happening. But from the consumer end, it feels good because you only have to pay $35 and everybody else figures out everything else. I hope they're doing a good job, but they're not doing a good job, and they can't do this forever.
Because they give you a statement that says, "Oh, it would have been thousands of dollars. Your portion 35," and you're like, "Oh, great!
Yep, you're being manipulated. You're being manipulated.
But then when you look at a breakdown and you're like, "Oh, $50 for a Band-Aid. That's ridiculous." But would that be different if it was the sort of everybody pays and
if you went to the doctor's office or grocery store and you were given a Band-Aid when you were in there, and on the invoice it said $50, and you're looking at it, would you say something to the doctor who just charged you $50 for a Band-Aid?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, because you're involved in the transaction. When the Band-Aid comes through on the invoice, they use the Band-Aid, they charge the insurance company. Two questions. Where on the invoices say Band-Aid equals $50? Does it say that when you get the cost of service from an insurance company?
From the insurance company? Oh.
No,
So.
you never see that the Band-Aid costs $50.
Yeah.
And even if it did, if the insurance company paid it and you saw it was $50, would you say anything?
Probably not.
No, because the other person paid. We don't care if it's the other guy, right? We care if we paid for it. And so when you distance the consumer with the $50 Band-Aid, it changes as the consumer line of thinking that if the other guy paid for it, I'll let him pay $50 for a Band-Aid, haha. And when you do that, what happens? Insurance companies know, or a doctor's office will know what insurance companies will pay, and they charge the $50 for it because they can. If you put a limitation, okay, so if you're a consumer and you're like, hey, I want to buy the swimming pool from you, right? Would you as a consumer say, the most I'm willing to pay for the swimming pool is $10,000? What is the chances of the swimming pool, the estimate for the swimming pool being $9,999.99?
Probably pretty high.
So you wouldn't give you your upside limitations, because if you're not dealing with someone, you'd be uber surprised if it came out to be $5,000. You'd be like, I have a lot of respect for you. You could have taken me right up to my limits and charged me every penny you could. You didn't. You're a good person.
Yeah.
But in the insurance field, how many times do doctors charge up to the limitation on everything that an insurance company would be willing to pay? Are they a bad person because they're doing that? Or are they getting away with it because they then have tons of liabilities that they have to offload off to somebody else? So everybody is spending everybody else's money, and they're not being responsible with it. And so they're inefficient, making bad decisions and making it cost too much. It's the same freaking cycle.
I have experienced working in an office once where it was like, I saw the people whose insurance companies were really good at paying out and easy to work with get more than
Why would you not?
who are
Every
not.
consumer would do that. You don't
Yeah.
want the guy that's making that decision. Like, if 99% of the doctors are billing out the cap on a service, like, why are you as the one doctor who's like, no, I'm going to be at a disadvantage. I'm going to just put the value into the marketplace, because there's no reward for putting the good value out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Your competition's always billing it on 99% of the top top rate. You're making less money, and you're not getting an award for it. They're not throwing confetti. I'd file a grievance against you for effing up the averages for billing less than it's taking. So if you want to talk about greed and all the vices that go into this, everybody's doing the wrong thing. The doctors are doing the wrong thing. The insurance companies are doing the wrong thing. Consumers are doing the wrong thing, and politicians are doing the wrong thing. So we have a dumb system that is only going to get worse because everybody's acting stupidly. I don't know how I can articulate it any better.
I mean, I'll ask this again. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
When does your campaign start?
Never. Never. Zero chance.
Come on, Joe. Save us all.
Do you really think that what we're talking about now... Oh, okay, so if I go to let's just say I do a podcast on a liberal network, and this is what we talk about. Do you really think that it's going to be a compromise of ideas where we're going to just say, oh, here's your angle and here's my take? Tell me where I'm wrong on any of this stuff, any inaccuracy in anything that I've said, and I'll listen to you. But if it's like, corporations are just evil, or workers. If it
Yeah.
weren't for workers, then the company wouldn't have any money anyway.
If they just weren't so greedy. They're just greedy, and this big greed is taking over everything. And these power
talk to me
people.
math, and doing a thing will solve a problem. So one of the Bernie Sanders hits was on global warming, and I don't consider Joe Rogan being a global warming as a hoax person, but he threw something very simple. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to say, I want you to give me a reasonable deal, right?
Okay.
Global warming is happening, debatable, right?
Debatable.
And it is caused by human beings, also debatable. Cool.
Right.
Let's just say that it is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you made a spreadsheet of who's contributing to global warming, if the United States is an 8% contributor to carbon dioxide releasing in the atmosphere, and China was 51% of releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So you're a politician, and you can make things happen. Are you going to sacrifice the prosperity of the people in the United States to make our 8% into 7%? Or are you going to acknowledge that China's not going to do anything we ask? We have absolutely no controls over them. They're going to keep polluting. And let's not attack people here in the United States. If there's anything we can do, let's try to convince China to use less than 51%.
Yeah.
Make them 45% at the cost of no one.
That's a China problem.
There you go. That would be reasonable. Bernie Sanders didn't say that.
Oh, God.
He still thinks it's important for the United States to make a bigger impact, right? Spend more money and make a bigger investment into green energy in the United States for single-digit percentage, when the biggest contributors are people that we have can make no effect. Is that a reasonable sacrifice that you would make as a human being so that you could say you could do it even if it makes no impact in anything? Unreasonable.
Unreasonable. Just like with the business. Well, let's impact this, even though it's not going to help the problem to begin with.
It's an emotional appeal that has no spreadsheet data that could say what you're about to do is you're going to take a cost on, right? And 0% chance you're going to make anything different or better. That's dumb. That's freaking stupid.
Very dumb. Joseph, by the way, says he would vote for you twice.
Oh, thank you, Joseph. I appreciate it. And even my detractors, even people who I disagree with on most things politics, they know that I'm reasonable, objective enough to know that most of this stuff has common ground, middle of the road, agreements where I'm willing to make concessions. I know 100% capitalistic world, right, has its own set of problems, like 100% socialist world. But if you take the best of both of those worlds and hybrid them together, you have then the planters who know that the harvesters are valuable, and the harvesters and they know the planters are valuable. And you don't pit each other one against one another and know that without you couldn't have me. And the other one says, without me, you couldn't have.
Yeah. And again, it's this idea of just the two options, the two parties, the two sides, just like, when do we finally realize that, hey, can we somehow form a hybrid of ideas instead of just all one way or all the other?
Can't do it.
We can't do it because the two sides are too powerful and they benefit from having two sides.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone comes in and they're like, hey, let's take a middle ground and you'll give and take a little and you'll give and take a little and won't be perfect, but we'll be better than we are. Nope. That's when the greed and everything comes in. It's,
Yeah.
No. Then I lose some of my power and I have to recede a little bit. And it's like,
So I would have loved to have that interview with Bernie, and I would have probably spent a majority of the time not on any kind of issues because it would have just turned into the same conversation that everybody's had a million times, and there would be an impasse. Mm-hmm. It would be almost all philosophy. And the principles that either feed into everything he thinks or believes that would work out. I would nail him on a couple of the end results, like, well, how do you do this part of it and this part of it and this part? Because I would like Joe Rogan was willing to let him escape the conversation without telling him how you control China's 51% carbon dioxide. I wouldn't have been able to let up. Until you answer that question, I'm not willing to sacrifice my neighbor's prosperity for your magic formula that somehow makes China's pollution go away somehow.
So if he said something like, well, you can't change what other people are doing. You can only change your own behaviors.
Yeah.
What
And
would you
so
say?
to a point, a balance of what you're willing to do. Let's preserve, make sure that we do clean stuff and we protect as much as we can and get us as low as possible without the sacrifice. So you're going to have the sacrifice of prosperity moving in this direction, and it's going to be the environmental global warming crowd on this direction, and there's going to be a meeting in the middle somewhere along the road, and that's where we're going to live. We're going to keep making it healthier and more environmentally conscious, and we're going to preserve jobs in our industries and our economy right there in the middle. That's really the most reasonable part of it. And unless you can make a sacrifice that solves the problem, and I can pitch it, like, if we do this, I could guarantee you that this is going to happen. And we're like, cool, I'm holding you to it. Then I make a sacrifice and you deliver me the value of being able to guarantee what you say is going to happen. Cool. But as long as you're never going to state what your guarantee is, I'm not giving you that money. I'm not investing in that. That's a dumb investment. Make it better, right?
Make it better.
Yeah. So here, okay, so Bernie Sanders said, okay, we are going to cap carbon dioxide pollution in the United States. Every factory has to be at 0%, right?
Okay.
And the reason I'm doing this is because we have weather, we have hurricanes, we have rain, we have heat. All of it is off the charts, getting too aggressive. I'm going to say, cool. So we're going to put the caps on all of our industry. Can you guarantee that then we will not have storms that are above baseline averages? Well, no, I can't guarantee that. Anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can't get people perpetually to invest in something where you can constantly move the goalposts, but you're asking a sacrifice from people who are not you. Sure, if you want to do it, cool. You go sacrifice your shit. You turn in your private jet and you don't have 6 houses and you turn off the air conditioner. Awesome. You're living your principles.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine. But you're asking me to do it. I need to have some proof, right, that there's going to have an effect if I'm willing to sacrifice.
Perpetuating that sort of victim mindset of, well, we have this and I don't have this, and so you've got to do this, and it's like, but that's not even the problem. Yeah.
But you notice all of the sacrifice is always the other guy. It's
Right.
always the other guy.
Yeah. It's never you. It's going to be the other guy.
Yeah, we're
They're
not
going to pay for it.
Bernie's not going to say,
do
like,
it.
we're not going to hold rallies anymore because when we hold rallies, we're making the park a disaster. Everybody's littering, so no more rallies.
Yeah.
Because we're harming the environment. We're trampling the grass, and everybody's...
Like, is there a cap on what Bernie Sanders can make as far as his money?
Oh, he has some money. He has some money.
So, like, at one point then, it's like, well, Bernie, you're getting up there, so should we tell you, hey, buddy, no, you can't get any more money.
Not a great prototype for how people should behave if the
Yeah.
spokesperson can't follow the behaviors they want to, induct other people
Yeah.
into. So yeah, that's why I said it's bullshit. And again, I like the guy's, sort of like his emotional connection to people and the reasons that he wants to do it. Just don't let him do it because it's failed logic and failed mathematics behind it. But maybe he'll get coupled with a smart person at a certain point. So you can take all of the feel-good philosophies and couple it with the engineering that makes some of them better and more possible. Because if you could just promise me that he won't be able to do the things that don't make sense, he'll throw it in the court of people who are good at getting things done. I might actually be willing to feel the burn. I might.
Feel the burn.
I might be able to
in a good way, not a bad way.
No, not feeling a burn in the bad way. What else? I dominated with this with my Bernie Sanders.
Well, I have a random question. This isn't nearly as intellectual. It's just it was kind of funny
It's
thing.
bubblegummy topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you feel, or maybe you don't care at all, any emotional response to Trump using the F word, dropping the F bomb? That's become a thing, apparently. How do you feel about that?
So I've known people who went to his private fundraisers and whatever, and that is his real language. He is a swearer. He does not hold back. He is very vocal about F-bombs and every other vulgarity. So for him, and I even talked to a couple of people after the 2020 election, and they went to a couple fundraisers for him, and he toned back his language usage right, a great deal. So they had him hemmed in with how he expressed himself. So you're seeing real frustrated,
Annoyed
Trump. That's really who he is. So if you want to see the gloves throw off and know he's about to throw down, the vulgarities are going to be aplenty. And then in the back rooms, he's probably throwing down the F-bombs like it's nobody's business.
And do you necessarily think it's a bad thing that came out? His true whatever, true color,
no,
if
that's who he is, then that's who he is.
I find it interesting that people are just sort of really into like.
Who is?
Oh my God, well, there's memes now, which is kind of funny, but like people are making memes about it, like a swear jar meme and everything. And, sometimes people are like, oh, if you're intelligent, you don't need to use that kind of language kind of thing. And I'm like,
so really all there is, Democrats that don't like Trump, they think that Republicans and supporters of Trump thinks he's Jesus. So when you have an event, like literally, we do not think he is Jesus or a good person or ethical or moral at all. He's there because he punches people, right? And he's good from a deal-making standpoint. I tolerate everything else with Trump. If he's effective, I'll put up with all of his foibles to get what I want, which is somebody who's going to punch those people in the mouth and get shit done. And that's it. Yeah. He's not Jesus. So you telling me if you came out and said yesterday that he punched a baby in the face, I would be like, yep, that's Trump. He probably freaking did that.
But then you have these people that are like, but you should in a leader and the leader of our country and the president of the United States, you should want to be proud of them. They should be a respectable person. They should be able to represent us in a certain way with some decorum and whatever. And you're a bad person if it doesn't bother you enough that he's said things about women or done things to women or done this and that.
Here's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
If we're going to play the ideals game, let me know when it starts. Okay? Because I'm on board.
That's my thing is like, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter how the leader of our country treats women. I'm not saying it doesn't matter that he might come off a certain way. Like, sure, if we could have a very respectable person who is just the epitome of integrity and tact and whatever it is, obviously that would be beneficial. But
we're not there.
You show me where that is, and I'll vote for them.
Yes.
And so if that does not exist, then it's okay. Well, then let's look at some other things they can do.
Is that straw man, by the way? You concoct something that doesn't exist and argue it as if it does, and then you base your argument on something that is fictitious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the time I hear people say, well, Trump, I love when they release like things he said about like pageant girls and look at this disgusting guy objectifying young girls. I want to be like, I'm sorry. Did you read Biden's daughter's journal entry? Like, didn't Biden's own daughter talk about feeling uncomfortable around him and him trying to shower with her and all this stuff? So I was like, again, show me who the good one is.
The challenge is next election cycle, we're only going to hire the purest souls in government. When everybody does that, then they have a chance to yap that everybody should be at a pure level, having, not made mistakes and not been vulgar and not had moments of whatever. But until then, they're all deplorable people. They're all terrible people. And so when they do terrible things, I'm not surprised. That's why I want to limit them, because they're terrible people.
Yeah, and that's why, like, anybody that is making sort of that name-calling or emotional appeal with me when it comes to anything political is automatically out for me. Like, you could probably say, oh, Bernie, you seem like a nice guy, but your idea sucks. You're way off base.
Yeah.
That doesn't mathematically work out. You're not a terrible person, but you're not right for this position.
That's exactly right.
Yes. And anybody who could be like, oh, you know what? I just don't think Trump's ideas would work out mathematically. Even if they're like, tariffs aren't going to help anyone, and here's why, blah, blah, blah. fine, I'll listen to that all day. But when it's just the emotional, the name calling, and he said this about a woman, and he uses foul language, and he puffs his chest all the time, I'm like, don't you see? Like, that's not, if that's what you're going off of, if that's what you're basing this off of, I don't even understand how we then even get to the whole, okay, well, find me someone virtuous and has the good ideas.
Here's a hypothetical. Jesus comes back. Can he get elected in politics at all?
No.
He would not. So don't talk to me. Don't talk to me about purity standards when I know your system would not be embracing of a pure soul that is Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, nowhere near this conversation. We're nowhere near.
I could hear someone being like, oh my God, that Jesus guy is so judgmental. And it's like, why don't you just let us do what we want to do? And you have to like judge us all the time and tell us what to do. And
what else? That was actually a pretty good topic.
Oh, thanks.
What else? What else is? We only got a couple more minutes here, but anything
the
else?
F-bomb. We talked about RFK and the whole pre-authorization thing. What was another thing I recently saw a bunch of hubbub about?
Did you see Rachel Zegler's going to be playing the main character in The Sound of Music?
No.
Theatrical. Like this is dumb on top of dumb. Like
Really?
Yes.
I did not see that.
Yeah. It's crazy to me because if you have a person that is so terrible in the entertainment industry, when they do something stupid like she did with Snow White, for those of you who don't know, she badmouthed the story of Snow White, and they absolutely ruined it because of changing the story based on her opinions.
And she spoke out about her political beliefs,
sure.
so that divided people.
Totally destroyed something. Could have made a lot of money, but they did dumb things. You would think that after that reveal, that everybody like, I'm not hiring that chick. I'm going to hire her. She's going to go in front of a camera and say, yeah, these white people are stupid and the storyline's stupid and everybody's a racist and you shouldn't come see this theatrical presentation. Not going with that chick.
Yeah.
Never hiring her to do it.
Well, the extreme that agrees with her will. I don't know if that's enough of a population to
maybe
support,
maybe it's a safer thing. The theater people might go see it, but you just don't expect when there's thousands of artists, thousands of thespians that to choose from, and you pick the one that's going to give you some headlines for sure, right? But is a terrible person and a terrible brand ambassador. Like, blows my mind.
I've seen a couple trailers recently. Are there any movies coming out that you are like, ooh, I might have to see that? Anything?
Movies I'm really sour on seeing any kind of movie. They are just not for me.
There's one I am kind of interested in, but it's a scary...
Can I make fun of you for it? Go ahead.
It's a scary movie.
Go ahead.
Have you seen the trailer for it's Weapon or Weapons or so the biggest reason I'm interested is it's got what's her face? The blonde from Ozark. You know who I'm talking about? I can't think of her name. She's in it. So that I think kind of perked up my, because I think she's kind of cool. I like her.
Yeah, but she's so vulgar. You're a bad person if you can listen to
she's vulgar in Ozark. I don't know if she's vulgar in real life.
Well, Trump is only vulgar in front of CNN.
Yeah, no. You can be vulgar, but make some entertainment.
All right, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to traverse back to that.
But yeah, so she's in it. So that kind of piqued my interest. It's a scary movie. I don't know a whole lot about it, except I guess the premise is she's a school teacher. And one day, all of her students, and only her students, are gone. No other classrooms. They're all missing. All of them. Parents are outraged. What the heck is going on? All this stuff. And so in the trailer, everybody in town's trying to figure out what happened while also showing images that it's maybe something demonic or ghostly, scary related. And so now I'm like, I kind of want to see it.
Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of want to see, it's not new. It's been out. But the movie Sinners with Michael B. Jordan, have you seen that? I feel like I'm like getting back on this scary movie kick again.
Okay.
And my problem is I don't want to ruin my mental health. It's like I'm not going to be able to like have my closet door open anymore and do all this stuff. Like, how does one separate fiction and reality and entertainment and what it's going to do to you? Or would you say, just don't put that stuff
is that
into your
a
psyche?
difficult pursuit for you, knowing what is real and what is not?
Listen, I know in my brain it's not real.
Okay.
But like, so I was telling my husband the other day, the movie Sinners has been out in theaters and now it's coming to Max streaming. And so we saw it on our little streaming thing. And I said, actually, I kind of want to see that movie. I'm kind of curious how it is. It's about vampires and stuff. And so he's like, well, let me see. And he pulls up the trailer and we watch the trailer. And just the trailer was enough that I'm like, I wish I didn't watch that before bed. Like, my brain knows it's a movie. It is actors. It is not real. This is not real. But in the middle of the night, ultimately, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to have to get up and go to the bathroom. And
I hear you. I hear
challenge.
you say those words, but being that you are picturing and using imaginative forces to create the possibility that you might experience something that you know not to be real. See, like on mine, from my perspective, things are real when I have evidence that they are real. Right?
Yeah.
I use my imaginative energy to maybe say it's potential to be real, but until it's been presented to me, it's not a real thing. So let's just say I turn on my TV and a ghost crawls out of it and gives me a high five. Now I know that is something that the next time I'm in front of the TV, I'm like, oh, I hope the ghost doesn't crawl out of the TV this time, because it's still just a potential, but there's evidence that it has happened before, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, if the closet door is open and never has there been, I've gone into the closet a bunch of times, 0 monsters. 0. I've looked under the bed a bunch of times. 0 monsters.
What if we just can't see them?
Then 0 monsters. So until it actually manifests, it's not real.
But you got only one time. If it manifests, you're done. So that's a risk.
So make preparations. Okay, so you know it has a low potential of happening. So the closet door, by you closing it, means that you lower the potential of it happening.
Yeah.
So whether or not it's real or not, you've increased your potential of surviving the demon spawn from your closet.
Because apparently they can't open doors.
Right. So when you get
in my world,
when you get in bed, right, you turn a light on, you take your flashlight and you look under the bed and you sweep to make sure that there is no monsters under the bed. And you turn the light off and you increase the potential that there's not a monster that's resident.
No, you don't. Because
Yes, you
in
do.
every horror movie, people look around with the lights on and you turn the lights off and then they're there. That's like par for the course.
You are referencing a fiction as evidence that it could go south. How many times in real life have you turned off the lights, having just swept underneath the closets and under the bed, and a monster presented itself? How many times? 0%.
For me.
So it hasn't happened yet. When it does, you and I both will take it a little bit more serious. There are things that happen, right, that have evidence of that you can protect yourself. Use all your imaginative energy to kind of get prepared for those things. Not the other ones that haven't happened.
Okay.
Okay? So people can break in your window. That has happened.
Oh, God.
Right?
Now I'm
So
just
what you
gonna
do
be
is
so
you do
scared.
sweeps of making sure your windows are locked.
Yeah, I check and double check my
There you go.
doors and I set the alarm
better use of energy than being fearful over stuff that has never happened, when you can do preparation on things that have low probability but still are possible and have happened in the real world. Use up that energy.
It still scares me.
How many times that you lock your window that you didn't get broken into before your fear level keeps going down? So let's just say your neighbor gets broken into, right? You didn't get broken into, but you know what happens. And how many times after, viciously checking all of your locks and doors, like your 5th time, your 7th time, your 100th time, then it doesn't happen, that you've lowered your anxieties about you being broken into until the next evidence position, like another
I could say how many times have I watched a scary movie and the scary thing in that movie has never been in my bedroom at night.
Yeah, but those
far
little,
as I know.
those little nudges on things you can do and control, do all of those things for a period of time until your anxieties levels go down.
Okay.
It's proper planning.
Okay.
All right, we're out of here for today. She's not going to be here because she's got to feed the medical machine.
I do.
But I will be here.
Like a chump.
Yep. All right. See you. Have a good day, everyone. Next time.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.